Hey everyone, it's Dr. Ashley, pediatric emergency mom. So there's some really cool research that's just been published out of Columbia, and it's in the publication Immunity. It was published July 7th of this year. This research has to do with infants and their recurrent respiratory infections. So they found two things. Number one, maybe why infants are more susceptible to recurrent infection, so the same infection over and over. And two, why they may be less susceptible to new pathogens like the SARS-CoV-2 virus. So in the first exposure to, let's say, a respiratory illness, babies will mount an immune response that involves memory T cells, and these start to accumulate at a rapid rate in the lungs and the intestines. That's good, right, to mount an immune response. What's not so great is that these memory T cells are not functionally very mature. So another way to think about it is they don't remember well, and they don't become functionally mature or start to remember being infected by this virus before until the child is about 4 or 6. And so this is probably the reason that babies are susceptible to recurrent infections with some of the same viruses. Now, the good news for kids that are about 4 and older is that their memory T cells do become more mature, and so they do remember those previous viruses, and they can mount a specific immune response to that virus. So something else that was published surrounds how babies may be able to handle newer pathogens better than older kids or adults. So what they found in looking at tissues from donor pediatric patients, so these are deceased pediatric patients, but they looked through their tissues, specifically the lungs, is that these tissues often had clusters of B cells. So this is another type of immune cell. These are antibody producing B cells, and they were surrounded by T cells. So these clusters of tissue are called BALT, bronchus associated lymphoid tissue. And this forms between 6 to 12 months of age. So the thought then is this tissue, this BALT, is what helps babies respond to new pathogens, brand new pathogens, like COVID, the SARS-CoV-2 virus. So to me, this is really interesting. This explains why adults were getting very sick with SARS-CoV-2 from a respiratory standpoint, but we weren't seeing that in babies. So to recap, we now know a little bit more about babies' weaknesses, their susceptibility to recurrent respiratory infections, and now we know about their strength, that they are able to fend off new pathogens in a way that older kids and adults can't. I thought it was just really interesting and wanted to share. Science is awesome.